They say a pigeon is worth 1,000 words. Well, that's not entirely true, but they are pretty good messengers. Back in the early days, before we had phones or the internet or even pen and paper, if you wanted to send a message to someone far away, you would have to rely on a messenger service. And wouldn't you know it, pigeons were the original delivery service. They could fly up to 60 miles per hour and travel at least 100 miles in a day. That's impressive even by today's standards. Back then, people would write their messages on tiny scrolls and tie them to the pigeon's leg with a little leather strap. The first written record of this was back in Egypt in 300 BC. It was a common form of communication for hundreds of years. And eventually the Romans took over the pigeon post, so to speak, and used it to deliver messages throughout their empire, but it wasn't until the Middle Ages that these birds really took off. Literally, you see, back then, castles were all the rage and people would use pigeons to sneak messages past the castle walls. They would hide the messages in the birds' nests or tie them to their legs like we mentioned before. The birds would fly back and forth between the castles, delivering secret messages that could sometimes take as little as 10 minutes. That's way faster than waiting for a horse to get there, and because castles were usually only a few miles apart, the pigeons would just fly straight back to their loft after delivering the message. But when they were done, they would get a reward, a little treat and some water. These birds were so prized for their speed and reliability that kings and queens kept entire flocks of them. For example, Queen Elizabeth I of England had more than 4,000 birds in her pigeon loft. And Napoleon had more than 2,000. Of course, no job is without its risks, and some of these birds didn't make it back home. Sometimes they would get injured or eaten by predators like cats or dogs. But most of the time they would successfully deliver their message and live to tell the tale. In fact, one pigeon named Cherami saved a bunch of American soldiers in World War I. The Germans had captured the town where Cherami lived with her owner, an American lieutenant. But when the Germans advanced, Cherami flew back to American lines and led the soldiers back to her owner and the rest of the trapped troops. She was awarded the French Croix de Guerre for her bravery, and you can still see her stuff to this day at the National Museum of the United States Army. So next time you see a pigeon, remember, these birds are more than just a nuisance. They are a reminder of a time when a pigeon was worth 1,000 words and a whole lot more.